Okay, Mayor, you could start.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the regular Board of Trustee meeting for Tuesday, May 11th, 2021. Is there a motion to open the meeting? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? Meeting is officially open. Can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
United
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty
justice for
and
all.
justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to take a motion to adjourn the regular Board of Trustee meeting and go into executive session for advice of counsel. Is there a motion? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? Okay, we're going to break out into advice of counsel meeting. We'll rejoin you shortly.
Donna, you need to go find your link in in your calendar. Find the alternative link in the calendar. Or in your email from me. I can't hear you, so I'm not sure if I can help. Let me know.
Okay. Want to welcome, do I need a motion to close the executive session? No, I need a motion to reopen this meeting. I don't need a motion at all. I can't hear you.
Did you open this meeting? Yes. And you took a motion to go into executive session?
I did.
Yes, then take a motion to return to the meeting, and then Liz can have minutes from the executive session.
Okay. Is there a motion to reopen the regular Board of Trustee meeting? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee Nell, all in favor? Okay, so we're now back with the regular meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. And I think we're ready to move forward, and that will be the presentations. And I think we have the Dobsbury Police Benevolent Association Awards. So is someone here from the PBA?
If there's anyone here from the PBA, can you please raise your hand? Oh, yeah. I didn't see him. Justin, can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Jennifer, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Board, Officer Administrative Staff, Chief of Police. I'm Sergeant Shelton Kamke. I'm a village resident. I'm the president of Dobsbury Police PBA. I'm here to do some awards this evening for National Police Week. Just a little bit about National Police Week. In 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Police Officer Memorial Day and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. Established by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962, Dobsbury Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for safety and protection of others. National Police Week is a collaborative effort of many organizations dedicated to honoring America's law enforcement community. So today, we're going to do some awards for the for things that went on in the village over in 2019 and 20. Good evening, and welcome to the Dobsbury Police PBA Annual Award Ceremony, where we honor the men and women of this department that went above and beyond to exhibit diligence, intuition, and skill during the performance of routine duties of the past year. There's no better time to acknowledge the efforts of our officers than National Police Week, the time to reflect and appreciate the services police officers in Dobsbury and across our nation offer, and the risk each and every time they put on the uniform. I think it's fair to state that there isn't a career or occupation that is more scrutinized, analyzed, and dissected than that of law enforcement. Police officers like the ones that stand before you this evening are dedicated to protecting the citizens they serve, importantly displaying the professionalism and integrity of the uniform expects and deserves. It is with great appreciation and honor that we, the PBA Executive Board, stand before you tonight to highlight the fine work of our officers and share in their accolades with friends, families, and the Dobsbury community. This evening, the Dobsbury PBA will recognize and commend the performance of officers based on the following categories and criteria. These events have been reviewed and voted by the awards committee and their peers and supervisors. Meritorious police duty, excellent police duty, unit citation, life-saving, and civilian award. We'll start off with the life-saving award. In 2020, Dobsbury police officers responded to 563 medical aid calls for service. The Dobsbury Police PBA Life Saving Award is presented to any member of the department whose actions directly contributed to saving or significantly prolonging human life. While it's gratifying for an officer to know he or she saved a life, on many occasions these incidents stay under the radar. Today we're able to acknowledge some of these officers and some of these incidents. On Wednesday, February 10, 2020, at approximately 20:33 hours, Officer Strobel, while on routine patrol, was dispatched to the medical aid case at Cabrini Nursing Home located at 115 Broadway in this jurisdiction for a male nurse down in cardiac arrest. Upon arrival, Officer Strobel was directed to the male lying down, surrounded by his peers, and immediately began to do a patient assessment and determined that the male was absent of a pulse and respirations. Officer Strobel, who then began CPR on the patient and attached an AED from Officer Strobel's patrol vehicle, to the patient. The AED advised to shock the patient to shock the patient. Officer Strobel did so. Dobbs-Ferry ambulance EMTs arrived on scene and continued CPR on the patient as he was transported by ambulance to Greenberg with the Greenberg paramedics. As the patient was in the ambulance receiving further care, the 62-year-old male regained a pulse and respirations. The patient was subsequently transported to St. John's Hospital in Yonkers, New York, for further treatment. P.O. Strobel's speedy response and prompt action with successful performance of CPR and application of the AED resulted in the patient's regaining pulse and respirations. P.O. Strobel actions made her worthy of the Dobbs-Ferry PBA Lifesaving Award. You guys can clap if you want. Some people, not you guys, not you guys. I mean, not the board and the trustee, the people in the audience here that are staring at me, Mayor. Good job.
Congratulations.
Officers on scene here also in the background. Their eyes were on me. I just wanted to make sure they were clapping for their fellow officer. Another life-saving award occurred on October 20th at approximately 4:42, which is 2:42 p.m. Officer Robert Marin responded to the parking lot of Building 2 of 200 Beacon Hill, a couple hundred yards from Springer School steps, to investigate a report of an unresponsive males within a vehicle. Upon arrival, Officer Marin observed two unresponsive males in a gray Toyota, which was involved in a minor car accident. Officer Posnick and Sergeant Vince arrived on scene shortly, assisting in the aid of two males. The male in the driver's seat of the vehicle was unconscious and unalert. He was administered a dose of Narcan, which made him semi-responsive. The second male in the front passenger seat was also unconscious and unalert, was given a dose of Narcan, but did not immediately become responsive. Officer Posnick, Officer Marin, and Sergeant Vince removed the males from the vehicle and began CPR. After CPR was given, a second Narcan dose was given to the second patient, and he became responsive. Sergeant Colvin and Officer Betts arrived on scene and removed the victim from the vehicle and was given another dose of Narcan. The speedy response and prompt actions, along with the successful performance of CPR and application of Narcan, resulted in the patient regaining pulse and respirations. Police officers are trained in a range of life-saving skills, and they did that day by administering the Narcan and performing CPR. The Narcan or naloxone reverses the effects of an opioid overdose to prevent them from being fatal. Without the quick actions of the responding officers, the persons could have died. The actions make these officers worthy of the Dobbs-Ferry PBA Lifesaving Awards. P.O. Robert Marin. Officer Josh Posnick. Officer Betts. And unfortunately, Sergeant Colvin and Sergeant Vince weren't able to make it. Sergeant Vince just recently retired, and Colvin is not here tonight. He's on vacation. All right. We're going to move on to the Meritorious Police Duty Awards. How can you hear me? You guys can hear me all right? All right. On Wednesday, August 12, 2020, at about 1 a.m., Sergeant DiPaolo was on routine patrol, observed two vehicles traveling on Ashford Avenue, which appeared to be following one another. Sergeant DiPaolo initiated a vehicle and traffic stop on one of the vehicles, a 2020 Audi Q5. It had no rear taillights. Sergeant DiPaolo, who is now joined by Officer Julius, had a conversation with the operator who stated that the vehicle belonged to a friend who he had been following. A check of the reg tag affixed to the vehicle determined that the license plate had been reported stolen from New York City Department. Another check of the plate had been reported. Vehicle VIN had been removed and has been stolen from Eastchester. The vehicle has been stolen from Eastchester, New York. The 19-year-old male operator was placed under arrest. A search incidental to the lawful arrest of the Audi was conducted, and the officers located a loaded handgun with a defaced serial number within the vehicle. While still on scene, the male operator then that was arrested person had been followed and became present at the scene. Further investigation of the officer on scene determined that the second male who had become present had been acting in concert with the operator of the Audi, and two was also placed under arrest. The male had a Honda key fob on his person. The officers then canvassed the area the second male had walked from and located a 2019 Honda Civic that had been observed operating and determined that had been stolen from the resident of Dobbs Ferry, who later confirmed that it was stolen. In that same evening, later that evening, about 2:20 in the morning, Sergeant Powell went back on the road and observed a 2009 Mitsubishi being operated on Allen Street in this village without rear taillights. Sergeant Powell then attempted to effect a traffic stop of the vehicle, but it continued to drive away and attempted to evade officers. Sergeant Powell pursued the vehicle for a short distance until an operator finally pulled over the vehicle. Both occupants of the vehicle then exited the vehicle and fled on foot, again attempting to avoid apprehension. Sergeant DiPaolo pursued the suspect on foot and was able to apprehend one of the occupants and place him in custody. Sergeant DiPaolo, who was assisted by police officer Julius, then set up a perimeter and requested assistance from surrounding jurisdictions to attempt to locate second suspect who had been in the vehicle. At about 3:30 in the morning, Sergeant DiPaolo was able to locate the second suspect and place him in custody. During this subsequent investigation, it was determined that the 2009 Mitsubishi was stolen from a resident of Dobbs Ferry who was unaware the vehicle was stolen. Sergeant DiPaolo's keen observation while on patrol with his skillful field investigations resulted in a rapid recovery of 3 stolen vehicles, 1 stolen license plate, a loaded firearm, along with additional assorted items stolen from additional larcenies from vehicles within the village. Additional 4 individuals were arrested and charged for their respective roles in the aforementioned crimes. Lastly, the rest of these individuals also assisted the Eastchester Police in the investigation of the 2020 Audi A5 that had been stolen from their jurisdiction. And in Tuckahoe Police Department, where we're able to identify these suspects in the open investigations of vehicle break-ins and larcenies of a firearm from a vehicle in their jurisdiction. The officers involved in this intelligent police work during a complex investigation with limited information on timely bringing the case to a close. The task was accomplished while ensuring the personal safety of the civilians in the area as well as themselves. Is therefore, I recommend that they be awarded the recognition of a meritorious police duty award. Sergeant Enzo DiPaolo and Officer Julius. Thank you, good job. Unfortunately, Sergeant DiPaolo and Julius is in training tonight, and Officer DiPaolo was unable to make the presentation. Another notorious police duty. On Monday, June 3rd, 2019, members of the Greenberg Drug and Alcohol Task Force were asked to assist on the Westchester FBI Safe Streets Task Force with an investigation attempting to locate an individual of West Haven, Connecticut. Members were advised that the wanted suspect was wanted in connection with multiple investigations in Connecticut, including but not limited to narcotics and the murder of an individual from Pittsfield, Massachusetts. The FBI had information from a confidential informant that he had been moving around the area of Dobbs Ferry and Ardsley from hotel to hotel, but was currently staying in the Ardsley Acres Motel on Sawmill River Road in Ardsley, New York. There was additional information that the suspect might be traveling with a male wanted for multiple bank robberies, in addition to having other companions with him. Upon arrival, members took up surveillance positions around the motel, concentrating on the room that the suspect might be in. Members were unable to immediately identify the male, and it was decided that it would be important to get into that room. Moments later, the male exited the cafe and was taken into custody without incident. He was identified as an individual from New Haven, Connecticut. Another individual was in possession of blue dye ink, which was later determined proceeded from a bank robbery in New Haven. Also additional bank robberies in Connecticut, as well as being a fugitive from justice on a robbery, assault, and larceny charges from New Haven. Members continued the surveillance of the motel in hopes that the suspect would provide intelligence as who may still be in the motel room. However, he refused to cooperate. Knowing that the wanted suspect was still likely inside the room, armed and dangerous, and not looking to go back to jail, members requested the Greenberg SWAT team to respond to the location for safety and support. Once the SWAT team was on scene, members began to evacuate the adjacent motel rooms in the event of an incident escalated. Once completed, SWAT moved into position of members of the task force secured the perimeter. At approximately 12 a.m., while preparing to make contact with the suspect, a room door opened and a male subject, later as they identified wanted, emerged, opening fire on members of the SWAT team, striking at least one SWAT member. A firearm battle then ensued between SWAT team members and the wanted suspect. During the course of the firearm battle, patrons of the motel who did not previously answer the doors or phone calls requesting be evacuated. Members of the task force and SWAT team, at great personal risk to themselves, evacuated said patrons to a safe place. The gun battle continued for several minutes, during which time a second SWAT member was struck and evacuated to be awaiting an ambulance. Gunfire from the room eventually ceased, and a 911 call came from within the room, was routed to Westchester County Police Department to the FBI member on scene. A woman later identified of New Haven, Connecticut, was hiding in the bathroom of the room and stated that the suspect was lying on the floor and did not appear to be moving. SWAT members then made entry into the room and found this wanted suspect on the floor with a loaded handgun. SWAT members and EMS rendered medical aid in the gunshot for his gunshot wounds, ultimately transporting him to an area hospital. The suspect who was reported, the individual who was reported missing to New Haven Police on May 17, 2019, was located within the room and taken into custody on Connecticut warrants without incident. The officers involved performed an intelligent police act involving personal risk to life. Their actions made it possible to apprehend multiple violent suspects with a long history of offenses. This task was accomplished while ensuring the personal safety of civilians as well as themselves. It's therefore recommended that they be awarded the recognition of meritorious police duty. The following members: Sergeant Travis Colvin, Detective Ryan Hennessy, Detective G. Congratulations. Got a couple more here, thank you. Award for excellent police duty. Officers of the Dobbs Police Department did respond to assist Irvington Police at a burglary in progress at a local residence. Upon arrival, Dobbs Police Officer Justin Mascarella identified and apprehended a perpetrator attempting to flee the crime scene. Investigation and interview of the apprehended perpetrator reveals that the crime has been planned and targeted an armed home invasion consisting of a 5-man invasion team as well as an offset support team. Further determined that this was a military-style mission with several objectives, including assaulting family members, beating their target until they provided information they wanted, theft of cryptocurrency believed to be in the residence and on a computer, and planned escape in numerous directions, followed by a rendezvous place somewhere within the village. This case is being prosecuted federally. All perpetrators have been identified. For Officer Mascarella in his duty to assist the neighboring village, he is awarded the excellent police duty. Thank you. Another excellent police duty. While on patrol, Officer Posnick and Officer Broccoli were dispatched to the area of 109 Beacon Hill Drive for an auto accident involving an overturned vehicle. While en route to the said location, responding officers were notified by the desk officer that 4 occupant males had exited the vehicle and were running south on Beacon Hill Drive. Upon arrival, responding officers observed the vehicle and smoke emanating from the vehicle. Officers began to canvass the area for possible suspects. While canvassing the area, units on patrol were advised that the license plate has been reported stolen at New York City, and the vehicle was reported stolen. While canvassing the area of Beacon Hill Drive around Round Hill Road, Lieutenant White, who was in RMP 903, observed a large male dressed in all black carrying a white backpack walking north on Ogden Avenue by the intersection of Chestnut Ridgeway. Our reporting officer then observed 3 other males walking approximately 30 feet in front of the male. RO exited the vehicle and ordered all of the males to stop to continue an investigation. All the males stopped and were questioned at that location. Approximately 1 minute later, a vehicle arrived on scene occupied by 2 males who identified themselves as off-duty Yonkers police officers. The 2 off-duty Yonkers police officers stated they had witnessed the incident and positively identified each of the males as the suspects who fled overturned stolen vehicles. At about 10 a.m., all parties were advised that they were under arrest and placed in separate vehicles without further incidents. All the parties subsequently transported to Dallas Police Headquarters for further investigation and processing. Officer Broccoli's keen observation while on patrol, along with his skillful field investigation, resulted in a rapid recovery of a stolen motor vehicle and is awarded excellent police duty award. Great job. One more. I got one more, and I got a civilian award here. While on patrol in 908, our officer at the time, Officer Palladino, observed a blue in color Volkswagen Jetta parked head-on the southwest corner of the Starbucks parking lot, located in Stanley Avenue. The reporting officer observed the above vehicle to have no license plate displayed on the trunk and what appeared to be a small, fraudulent New Jersey temporary paper license plate fixed to the window. The officer observed a male subject in the driver's seat to be slumped over, sweating profusely with a laptop open on his lap. The reporting officer was able to visually confirm the male subject to be breathing. The reporting officer observed the screen on the laptop, which showed a web page open. The words are read ecstasy pills on the website, which appeared to be for selling and buying such narcotics. The officer observed the victim suspect to be incoherent and observed the victim to have dilated pupils. The Dallas Ambulance Corps was requested to respond. The responding officer, attempting to gather information regarding the New Jersey license plate, was able to see in plain view 2 syringe needles on the front seat of the area where he was reaching. One syringe needle had an orange safety cap covering the needle. The other syringe had the needle exposed. The reporting officer removed the suspect from the vehicle and placed him in handcuffs for safety reasons. A DMV inquiry for the New York registration revealed the license plate to have been surrendered. Under further inspection, the New Jersey registration are observed to be printed on paper on the window to be blurry was fraudulent. While conducting a search of the incident of arrest, a small pill was found from the left pocket. The pill had a skull shaped in a brown color. Suspect stated the pill was ecstasy. The suspect was placed under arrest, and after an inventory and search of the vehicle, close to 2,000 pills were recovered within the vehicle, 973 ecstasy pills, 215 Oxycontin 30 milligram pills, 230 Oxycontin 80 milligram pills, and over 420 Vicodin pills were recovered for that incident. That incident is still being investigated locally and federally for his excellent police duty and his investigation on scene and keeping the village safe of drugs and people impaired in the vehicle. Sergeant Joseph Palladino for the excellent police duty. Congratulations. We just have a civilian award here that we like to give out. A certificate and plaque will be presented to a civilian that assists the department in the apprehension of criminal or an emergency. The award may also be presented when a civilian provides service which may be deemed beneficial to the department or the municipality. A local teacher here at the middle school, you guys, some of you that have kids in the middle school might know him or run on the track team, JP Kaminsky and his team at the Discover Camp used over 60 3D printers and laser cutters to print face shields for nurses, doctors, and other first responders like ourselves. The Discovery Camp 60 printers, 60 3D printers were working 24 hours a day to print and distribute over 10,000 face shields to healthcare workers and first responders. JP supplied the police department with face shields during COVID-19. JP Kaminsky's unselfish and sincere contributions to the Village of Dobbs Ferry Police Department and in his community truly made an impact to the first responders on the front line during COVID-19 pandemic. The Dobbs Ferry PBA Civilian Police Award goes to JP Kaminsky. We appreciate him for keeping us safe and keeping the village safe during this time. Unfortunately, JP wasn't able to make it tonight. I think he's on Zoom, so we appreciate it, JP. Thank you. Thank you for keeping us safe. And I just have some closing remarks. I appreciate your time tonight, board, mayor, board, trustee. I would just like to thank the mayor, the board, friends and family of the Dobbs Ferry Police Department for joining us. I personally want to express my appreciation for the outstanding professional service that officers displayed not only on the events mentioned tonight, this evening, but on a daily basis. We're truly proud of you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor. If you have any questions or anybody has any questions, I appreciate it. We thank you for allowing us here tonight and presenting the awards.
No, Justin and we really appreciate the efforts of the Dobbs Ferry Police Department and everything that you guys do. I want to thank and congratulate all the honorees and all the people who dedicate themselves to our well-being. So your efforts are greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Okay, we have the next presentation, which is a presentation on the CDBG grant application projects for review. I think.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to introduce this topic. We're currently in the midst of preparing the 2021 applications for the next cycle of the CDBG, the Community Block Grant Program. That's for the 2022 through 2024 years. Joining us this evening, I'm going to present a general overview of CDBG for the Board of Trustees and also for the public might find it of interest. Joining us this evening, Kendra Garrison, our Superintendent of Recreation, will be speaking about the actual programs that we put together for this year so far. George Palmer is the village engineer. He'll be here as well, as will Fiona Matthew, who's the grants administrator. So I want to speak a little bit about the program, just to sort of fill everybody in on what the parameters are and what the possibilities are. So here are the CDBG grant criteria and priorities. Basically, the projects that are funded have to benefit either low or moderate income persons, eliminate or prevent slums and blight, and meet an urgent need of recent origin. The projects that have been included and approved in Westchester previously have been those that seek to revitalize neighborhoods, improve housing, and promote economic development, promote fair housing, and support community facilities and services. This is the criteria and the priorities. Each project has to benefit individual households, 51% of whom qualify as low or moderate income. Those households are defined as those making between 50 and 80% of the area median income, which in Westchester is $125,800 for a family of 4. In Dobbs Ferry, there are 2 census block groups that meet those qualifications, meaning that the households that are required are located in those particular block group areas, and only those 2 areas are qualified for CDBG application. And you can see them here. These are the 2 areas that would qualify for a potential grant. One is along the Hudson River and one is along Ashford Avenue. So the 2 grant opportunities that we're speaking about tonight, each one is located in each of these 2 areas. The objectives, generically, this will tell you how the priorities are in the application process and in the actual approval process, and that is to create a suitable living environment, to offer decent housing, create economic opportunities, to provide availability, accessibility to services, infrastructure, housing, and shelter available, and also to provide activities that increase affordability of the community and opportunities for greater sustainability in neighborhoods. The Village of Dobbs Ferry coordinates through Westchester County and the Westchester County Planning Department. The applications that we're currently working on are due on June 25th of 2021, and that's why we're meeting here with you this evening. That application 2021 covers the years 2022 through 24. We're going to present 2 proposals this evening. In the last cycle, the village received 1 grant approval. So we're going to present 2 this evening, and we were encouraged to try to focus on less rather than more to show priorities of the community. We've also been coordinating with not-for-profits. They also have the opportunity to apply on their own. Each project requires a 50% match from the municipality. So if you come up with a project that's going to cost $250,000, the village has to come up with $125,000. You can apply for up to 4, and we have so far created 2. We were encouraged to apply for less, not more, in the hopes that our focus would be recognized. As I said, nonprofits can also apply, and we've been talking with 1 or 2 about their opportunity to do that. And we're, of course, a part of the Westchester Urban County Consortium. The current Gould Park Playground was the program that was funded in the last round. So I'm going to turn this over to Kendra, and she's going to speak about the 2 projects that we're currently coming in with. I will say that we will be scheduling a public hearing tonight for later in the month, and there'll also be an opportunity to for the public to have input at a public session. So there'll be 2 opportunities for the public and for the board to consider this and any other potential projects. But as I said, the calendar is quickly approaching, so that's why we're here this evening. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kendra. Thank you, Kendra.
Good evening. So the first one that we came up with was the Memorial Park spray pad. So we would be replacing the long defunct wading pool outside of Memorial Park. So as I'm sure a lot of you know, we had closed that pool about 4 years ago because it wasn't up to code anymore. So the idea is to put a 0 depth spray pad in there. Sorry. So here are pictures. This is the first picture is of what it used to look like. It's currently underneath some blacktop millings because we use that space for our outdoor ice rink this past summer. But then Felisa, if you slide to the next, that is one picture, and then there should be another one there. So these are some of the elements that we were looking at. The different spray features. So it would be open to the general public. It would be within walking distance to the community. And we thought it would be great to replace what was there. The next one, here's the cost estimate. Now this was an initial cost estimate back from 2018. This would be subject to change with COVID and everything else and kind of finalizing what those design elements would be. The next project would be for drainage along the Ashford Avenue right above the Gould Park pool. As some of you might remember, back in July, we had a lovely mudslide about a week before we were scheduled to open. There's some pictures here of kind of what the damage was. So the idea would be to I don't know if you can see the darkened spot there, it's a curb. So it would capture the water coming down off of Beacon Hill and divert it towards the stairway going down into Gould Park by the basketball court. So the water would go down there and then go into the storm sewer. This is a picture of the staircase. Right now, currently, there is no access from Ashford Avenue. So we think it would be great for people to be able to access the pool and the park. And then this slide is the cost estimate. and I am happy to answer any questions.
I'd love to hear from Fiona in terms of what she thinks our chances are based on all the work that she's done for us in the past for grant writing for these two projects.
Of course, the county's focus with CDBG money is to spread it to all the members of the consortium. And they like to prioritize communities with higher, low and moderate income populations. So for those two reasons, I think it most likely that the village of Dobbs Ferry would receive one maximum. I think 2 grant awards would be a huge win for Dobbs Ferry. I think 1 grant award is likely the greatest chance. I believe that we should submit at least 2 applications to show that there are many projects that need doing. In other words, my initial thought is like, wow, if we're going to get 1 grant award, we should submit the project that is most important to the village of Dobbs Ferry and thus assure that that is the awarded project. But that strategy doesn't really reflect the level of need in the village of Dobbs Ferry for funding for these important projects. So I recommend that we submit at least 2 applications. That's really my assessment.
How many did we submit last year or 2 years ago when we did this, Fiona? Projects, I mean.
I think we did 3.
Well, 3?
We
Yeah,
did the
the
spray
sidewalks.
pad, we did the Gould Park playground, and then we did some sidewalk improvements. And going in, we had essentially the same thought. You know, the program is, of course, like many programs, slightly underfunded just because money only goes that far. But going in, we submitted 3, but we did think that 1 was most likely the funding that we'd get.
Are the sidewalks off the table now, or do we have like a different plan in the village for funding that project?
Right, we've received a $250,000 earmark grant, which is State and Municipal Facilities Grant, which comes through the Dormitory Authority. And that was offered through Assemblyman Abernathy's office, and that's going for sidewalk improvements.
For those same sidewalks that we put in, like on, I think it was on Washington and Maple.
Some of the same sidewalks, right? There were some
great.
connections about connectivity of others that we suggested.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, in what state of the design phase or process would one of these projects need to be in order to apply for the grant?
The grant has a very limited time period for implementation. So they ask that projects are able to be done within a year, and that year runs from May through April. So, but what we're doing is we submit applications in June, and the first of the 3 years would then kick in the following May, right? So 11 months later. So the CDBG program recognizes that we have the time to do the design before the implementation year kicks in. And thus it doesn't demand that the design is done at the time of application submittal, but they do ask that once you're recommended for award, which tends to happen around January, that you get started on your design so that you can go to construction as quickly as possible after May 1st.
So you have January to May to work through design, estimating, and contract, essentially.
Estimating, you mean budget estimating?
Well, I mean competitive bidding, rather.
Yes, I see. Yes, essentially you do. Now the county offers design assistance for many projects, including playground projects and streetscape projects. I'm not quite sure about this level of stormwater project. So the county will offer free design services, which is something that's nice to avail oneself of. And then the bid, you can get it set up so that you're ready to go to bid essentially, you know, come May 1. And both of the projects that Kendra is proposing have a relatively short construction span. So we're fortunate in that each of them is just a few months. lead times allowing, of course, because there could be some issues post-COVID with, say, for example, a controller of the spray pad equipment. So we just need to allow for those lead times.
So there's no obligation to use the county design services. It's just beneficial to us because it doesn't cost us anything. We could, however, use our planning consultant or landscape architect consultant that the village retains. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And the communities that I work with do both. Many of them get their engineering firms or planning firms to work on the design, and then some prefer to use the county, particularly for the projects that the county has a great amount of expertise in, which is the ones that I'm most familiar with are playgrounds and sidewalks. But yes, essentially the great advantage to the community is a cost savings. And I should point out that either way, whether you use the county or whether you use your own engineer, a survey is required prior to design, and the survey may not be included in the grant budget. It's kind of a random fact, but I figured I'd throw it in there.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you for the presentation. I know we're going to address this later on down the agenda, so we'll talk a little bit more about it later on, but thank you for the presentation. Moving on, let's go to courtesy of the floor. Is anybody from the courtesy of the floor?
I don't see anyone with their hands raised.
Okay, so let's move to matters requiring action. This is action item number 1. It's a discussion of the Juneteenth and Pride events that will be coming up in June. So I know we have a memo from Aisha Williams from the Human Rights Diversity Committee, which pretty much explains it. I know Aisha is listed as a participant. Aisha, do you want to speak about it? We could promote her to panelist.
I just put her on. It's just taking a minute. Aisha, can you hear us?
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, good.
So welcome, Aisha.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi. So we do have your memo dated May 5th, 2021. Do you want to just discuss it a little further? I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but do you want to go highlight anything?
Sure, I'll give some of the higher level details. So the Human Rights and Diversity Committee, we're looking at a few plans for June, one being the Juneteenth celebration, obviously to commemorate or celebrate the emancipation of slavery. And on June 17th, the Children's Village is planning their Juneteenth celebration, I should say tentatively for June 17th, from 12 to 5 p.m. on their campus. And we would like to partner with them. Mainly the idea behind that is to really build a partnership with the Children's Village. And also it can be a way to further educate our community about Juneteenth and African American and Black heritage. In terms of what would be required for a partnership, there really is no financial obligation. It would really be more of support to promote the event and publicize the event and really position Children's Village as an organization that provides a positive impact on youth. So our committee would be happy to help with publicizing and looking at media outlets that could help promote the event. They would also love to have any Dobbs Ferry residents or students who could perform or serve as speakers or just offer any kind of, any of their talents as part of that event. And the talent should really speak to African American heritage and art forms. The one thing is really because of, I should say, size limitations and also COVID protocols, there's really only room for right now, maybe 20 Dobbs Ferry attendees. Children's Village is willing to look and see if that number can be increased. They're still in the planning stages, but our committee would love to invite some of our stakeholders in the community and also maybe some residents who really could help increase our partnership with the Children's Village. So that all can be discussed further, but that's just right now what we know in terms of what Children's Village has in the works. Any questions right now about Children's Village before I move on? Okay. Another opportunity that we're looking at is a partnership with Irvington and their Juneteenth celebration. And this is scheduled to be on June 19th. The timing is, I believe, from 2 to 5 p.m. And again, they're not really looking for financial requirement or obligation. It's really more community support. So volunteers needed to help with setting up the event and also publicity and promotion of the event. Right now, they do know that they're going to be having food, music, performances, and they also do need help though. There's a GoFundMe page that they have where they're going to be raising dollars to for audio equipment, supplies, stage, decor, different activities, but it's not required. It would be nice to help in that way. And right now it's still in the early planning stages. But again, we would love to be able to partner with Irvington on this, and more residents obviously would be able to attend versus the Children's Village partnership. Finally, the Greenberg Human Rights Committee is hosting a Pride rally, and in celebration of the LGBTQ community and their voices and talents, and just building more support for this community, as it is a growing community, and we want to help raise awareness of the LGBTQ community. So with this partnership, again, no monetary support is required, but they are looking for donations of services and goods. And again, they're still in the very early stages of planning, but they would love to, again, have our support in terms of promoting and publicizing the event. Maybe even having businesses put up posters in their windows about the event. Maybe even having our committee and also the Board of Trustees do a joint statement to really help support the event and speak about the event in support of the LGBTQ community. And for anyone who would like to help in terms of volunteering or sharing their talents, they are looking for talent from the LGBTQ community. And also allies and also parents, speakers, entertainers, musicians. So really just coming together as a community is the idea behind all of these ideas. I think we all would love to have something in Dobbs Ferry one day at the waterfront, but right now, I love the idea, and so does the committee, of being able to partner with other people who have been doing this. And would love to know any feedback or questions that you all have.
Thank you, Aisha. I think it's great. I think all those events seem, really worth our support, and I think we could stand behind it from my point of view. I don't know how the rest of the trustees feel.
Absolutely, yes. Please tell us where to go, where to be, and we'll be there and point any infusion of energy from the village to support it.
Who's sponsoring the Irvington one? Is it like the Village of Irvington, or do they have a group like we do that's sponsoring it, or is it just citizens?
That's a really good question, Nicole. I'm not aware of an actual group that's sponsoring it. I do know of someone who is really behind the entire planning of it. And I believe she is working with the Village of Irvington, but I can get clarity on that for sure. I haven't been able to actually meet with her directly. So a lot of this information is from one of our Human Rights and Diversity Committee members who has spoken with her directly. But there are more meetings coming up for that. And also these other events that we're looking at being a part of. And once we know that we're more interested in pursuing, I can certainly nail down more information and share it with Trustee DeRossi, who's our liaison.
We
Sure,
have a
yeah.
meeting, we have a meeting tomorrow, so any more information that comes, Stuart is very resourceful with the connections that he has in the county. So we're looking forward to having a meeting tomorrow and discussing more details, all of these ideas, and I will share it back with all of you.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Before you go, Christy, I'd like to share her screen. So Aisha, if you could just stay on, because I want your input on this as well.
I briefly talked to some of you guys about this, but I started looking into what would be involved in getting a rainbow crosswalk in Dobbs, like they have across the nation in various places, but I'd seen one recently in Great Barrington, which is closer, and in Maplewood, New Jersey. And so I started doing some research, and I just wanted to put that out here for all of us to discuss briefly and see how far we want to move forward with it. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay. And can you hear me clicking? All right. So what would be involved in this is getting approval from the board on the materials and labor to paint a rainbow over a crosswalk. And I'm thinking at Cedar and Main would be the best spot for some specific reasons. The main reason that people have begun doing this across the nation is just to create a symbol in your downtown that it shows that we're welcoming and we want to be unified and we are respectful. And most importantly for the board, it demonstrates our commitment to these things and makes it permanent to the best of, this stuff that you paint on the sidewalks ability. And especially for the youth to feel like their village is a part of this and supports them as they, acknowledge things throughout their high school, junior high, and earlier years. But then there's also other reasons. So if it was at Cedar and Main, and my thinking is that it would be the crosswalk that is by the old library that currently has a stop sign and a crossing guard during school hours, is that it also does other things that helps our village. Right now, the downtown is suffering and has been for the past year and a half. So this would be a destination. It would create a place, placemaking in the downtown that would attract people to come and walk there. It would be close to the 99 Cedar lot that does not get a lot of traction and possibly make people want to park there and walk to that location. It highlights a crosswalk. So in theory, it makes it more visual and more aware as you're driving in that area to pedestrians and the fact that there's a crosswalk there. And, we're always talking about having a walkable downtown. This is, highlighting something that's a walking area. So, above and beyond all of the awesome things that it would be for the social reasons, it actually has quite a few benefits for other things that we're striving to achieve in the village. So I was like, I'm going to pitch this to everybody. So this is the spot I'm talking about. It would be right around here. Makes a great picture too for people who want to come and take a picture and see the river in the background. But then, we have to be practical and think of all the pros and cons. I don't have a cost of what it would cost to do this. So this is super preliminary. I've just researched in news articles, and I've spoken to one of the council people in Maplewood, New Jersey, and in Great Barrington. Maplewoods was 10 grand, but it was 4 crosswalks. So ours is 1. It would be significantly less. But we'd have to consider with the labor and security of executing the project. The material is, I can't remember the name of it, but I'll have it for future presentation. It's a permanent type of plasticky paint stuff that you put in the ground. You have to hire a vendor that specifically does this with the rainbow colors. It's not like the standard black and white stuff that we normally have. So there's costs that would be associated with it, but we don't know what yet. Safety, of course, we don't want to cause more problems with pedestrians, and we can do more research into this. Anecdotally, Maplewood says that more people slow down now that there's a rainbow crosswalk there, because it does bring more awareness to the fact that there's a crosswalk there. And they haven't had any incidents in those crosswalks. Actually, they've had it in other crosswalks. Timing, I don't know. I mean, initially I was like, oh, let's do this for June. Let's just crank it out. I don't think it's that kind of a turnaround project. You have to like get on the list with a vendor to get it done. So I'd want to know when it was last painted, and it seemed like it's not super freshly painted, but I need to talk further with DPW about that. And then how long does it have to be closed? The Maplewood guy said it's a day, or it was just like a couple hours it took for 4 crosswalks. So it shouldn't take that long. Legally, we've already talked about this with Rivertown Square, where they wanted to do some decorative, like, I mean, the ones they showed us had like language and stuff written on them, crosswalks in their Rivertown Square area. And we were concerned about the safety of that. So we just have to look into the legality of all of it. And then of course, precedent, we never want to set a precedent that's going to cause problems for, future boards and the rest of the residents of the village. I think that we could probably argue that you would do this because it's a very specific sort of landmark, for pride, LGBTQ, but we should consider precedent also. This is just one article I found, but I could go and make a much more thorough deck if we wanted to look into this. So just wanted to put this out there, see if everybody wanted to keep investigating, and I'd be happy to investigate more into this myself and work with village staff on it and do whatever you need me to do if you are interested.
So thoughts, comments?
I think it's a great idea.
The presentation, I agree with you. I support this endeavor. I think the cost and the timing seem like very minor hurdles given all the other things that we're able to do or not do. And I'd be happy to help in some way, if only to maybe help get the material quicker through maybe some sources I could muster. So in support.
And I personally think it's pretty fabulous. Right now, we're in between meetings with the Human Rights and Diversity Committee when we first saw this opportunity come through. As Trustee Drosy mentioned, we meet tomorrow, but I know a couple of thoughts have already come up regarding it. Just how can we really turn this into a true, authentic educational opportunity, right? One idea from a member was maybe adding a story walk component. So this is something I really think our committee should get to see at our meeting tomorrow, because they're a wonderful group and we'll have amazing ideas of how to enhance it. And may also ask the questions that I'm not asking as to maybe any cons to it. But at first glance, it looks great.
Chief, what do you think?
I would have to look into it a bit more before having it.
Okay.
Matter.
And Laura
I think
Lee,
it's I think it's great in concept. It's just, we should just make sure that it doesn't create any safety issues. But since other communities have done it, I'm sure there's research out there or historical data we can rely on.
right, so Laura Lee, you'd have to take some look into that as well, right?
Sure, and working with the chief, we can even contact these communities to see the depth of the research that they did, the need for being cognizant of the safety aspect and further things. I would also just want to know how long it takes for the paint to wear. Is it something that you would like to keep in place for a while? Is it a temporary thing? So, I mean, there are many aspects of this to consider, and not the least of which is you'd have to get estimates to satisfy Jeff for his procurement efforts if it was a project that you were interested in pursuing.
Larry, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea. I think it really, says something and that matters and is very consistent with, what we're trying to convey to the world.
Donna?
First, I don't think it needs DOT approval because it's on our street. But we should look into whether it needs that or not. And it should also be pointed out that the rainbow flag is not just a symbol for gay pride. It was also initiated as the Rainbow Coalition flag at one time. So it's an idea. It's a unity flag in addition to being a gay pride flag. Unity and diversity flag.
Okay. Laura?
Thank you. I love all the input from everyone. I think that actually the timing of the way that the meetings are falling is just perfect, because with all of your great input, we will have further discussions tomorrow. Christy is joining us for the beginning of our meeting. And I love the initiative that Christy has created with this. And it's just, a good opportunity for us to look into all of the different ideas and different things that we can do, as Aisha shared. There's other members of the committee that they are hoping to be able to link this to something else. So once the safety and all of these other elements are discussed, it's something that I definitely would love for us to pursue doing.
Okay, so then we'll look for the Human Rights Committee to comment on it. And then we can, run it by the Traffic Committee, and Laura Lee and Rick can look further at it as well. And then Richard and Jeff could deal with the money part. So, okay. So sounds good. Thank you, Christy, for all the work that you did in preparing this. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Aisha.
It's certainly helpful that it's at a stop street and not one of the crosswalks, which would be in the middle of the block. So that was thoughtful.
Okay, let's move along to action item number 2, which is a discussion of the Kalia appointment and appointment of a police lieutenant. So I know, Chief, you sent a memo dated May 6, 2021, outlining this. Do you just want to give us a little bit of information?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to circle back with now that we're about a month and a half since the close of the submission of our police reform package. And I know that one of the discussions was meeting back up within 6 months approximately. And so I want to begin the process of moving forward with some of the recommendations, which the CALIA certainly was one of the bigger things discussed, I thought, particularly as it relates to policy procedure, which I've said before is really the backbone, I believe, or the foundation thereof of a police department. So unfortunately, with timing, I wasn't able to, and not knowing where the recommendations were going, able to kind of time this with the budget. So my hope is with the board's approval and with Jeff's assistance, being able to get this on the May 25th board agenda for approval, because there will be an initial outlay of cost for the initial application for CALIA, which ties in with the potential up promotion of a sergeant to lieutenant, which again, as I said, works within the footprint of the Dobbs Ferry Police Department. This is not an increase in the size of the police department, nor is it a loss of supervision. In fact, it's creating another layer of supervision within that secondary level of the police department. But again, CALIA, it's a national accreditation program by an independent body that, just as a reminder, created in 1979 through the four main major executive associations: the IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police; NOBLE, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives; the National Sheriff's Association; and the Police Executive Research Forum. This will be a big project if approved going forward. I'm not going to kid you. This is a major undertaking. There are only currently 5 police agencies in New York State that have achieved the CALIA certification. So it is rarefied air in a way. There are 2 tiers involved. The first level of accreditation consists of 181 standards. And the gold standard is the big one. That's 459 standards, which requires a lot of work, a lot of daily work, which kind of ties into why I've requested the creation of a 3rd lieutenant position. And again, if the board is acceptable that we can start moving forward, it requires some background work. Well, I'm going to need the village clerk's assistance because we do have to coordinate with county civil service as they have to approve the creation of the position, as well as the certifying list that the county is in possession of. There would be an initial application fee once we move forward. That is approximately $11,450. I am told we can apply for a waiver through CALIA to see if they may say that's unnecessary. I can't guarantee that. After that, we would begin working on our policy procedure to incorporate our current New York State standards with the CALIA to create one unified department manual. And once we believe we are ready for assessment, that's where we would petition the CALIA organization itself. That is when the second assessment charge, which is approximately $5,500, so that can be timed with fiscal budgets going forward. So it's not that we need to outlay X amount of dollars upfront. The only initial upfront cost is that application fee. We have up to 3 years to achieve accreditation standards. Like I said, once that comes, that's when the $5,500 assessment charge. And then after that, our maintenance fee going forward. And again, that would be rolled into future fiscal budgets is approximately $4,600. The difference currently between a sergeant per the CBA agreement that the village has with the PBA between a sergeant and lieutenant would be $15,871. So those are really the challenges. Again, in discussion with everybody in various previous meetings, my thought is that in order to do this right, not to waste village finances, not to waste our time, is I'm looking for somebody of that rank that has the vision and the authority to oversee, because the CALIA is, again, this will be a big deal for us when we do achieve it. Scarsdale is the only police agency in this county that has been CALIA accredited since the late 80s. So we would love to stand beside them, and we want to be leaders in law enforcement. The status quo for me, for the residents, I don't think, we shouldn't be sitting in one place. This agency in this village should continuously look to improve itself. And for the police department, this is just another step as we continue to evolve and meet whatever challenges we may face. And while it'll be the police department working on this, understand you, each and every one of you, are part of the process if you give us permission to go forward. This is a true collaborative, and that is kind of where we're at. Do you have any questions?
Well, I know it was part of the task force's recommendations that we do this. So in light of that, I'm in favor of moving forward to it. I think the more training that the police department has, the better it is for everyone. How does the rest of the trustees feel about it?
I'm fine with it. I know the chief has done a great job with the department and the guys and the gals. And again, it was recommended by a number of the subcommittees in the task force. I think it's very worthwhile. It would be great credit to Dobbs Ferry.
I agree. I think the benefits really outweigh the cost here, so it's kind of a no-brainer.
Agreed.
Someone's asked a question in the Q&A, and that's something I wonder is what type of work does GLAAD, or what kind of assistance or training do they do in regards to the social justice work? Is it other kind of tactical training? Can you speak to any of that?
I want to thank the chief for taking such a priority to this particular training, as it was definitely one of the trainings that we mainly highlighted on our recommendations. And I'm very happy to see that you are taking such a fast action on it immediately.
So just to go back to Christie's question, which is really the question that someone posted, is there anything that how you can respond to that? I mean, do they address that at all?
They're looking actually right now through the various standards. We would really have to dive into that. I mean, these are things that I can add into. It may not be potentially a standard specifically cited, but that does not mean that this agency cannot create the policy based off of the village's feedback and what they're looking for to make sure that we are covering all bases, so to speak.
Okay. I think, have I heard from everybody? Mike, have you had any comment?
Yeah, I just had a question. I'm just, I'm assuming, Chief, you're looking towards a tier 2 accreditation. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm looking for the gold standard. I want to meet the 459. That is the goal.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I also I did some research on this subject and spoke to the chief of police in Scarsdale about what benefits it has offered them over the years. Ultimately, the better the standards, the more professional the services by the police department. It's a benefit to the police department, it's a benefit to the community, and it's worked in their favor for a very long time. And it's very hard for that department to imagine functioning without it. And so when we looked at our police reform issues, this seemed like an important component of policy making. So I'm also very much in favor of this.
Okay, so then we should put it on, get ready to put it on for the next Board of Trustee meeting so we can move forward with it. Okay?
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Action item number 3 is the discussion of sewer rent and potential postponing of the levy of open past due charges. So Richard, do you want to speak to this, or Jeff? Or both?
You're on mute, Richard.
There you go. Thank you. So yeah, you implemented a sewer rent program last year. It was a brand new program. There are certain arrears that have taken place where, for one reason or another, people were not aware of the requirement to pay, and/or they may have been entitled to an exemption under the law, but that has not yet been fully processed. So at this point, normally, if you have a water charge or a sewer rent that's in arrears, you have the opportunity to re-levy it and make it part of the next ensuing tax bill. That is your option. However, there was some thought because there's an outstanding amount and perhaps some confusion about the program, and also the fact that some people may ultimately be entitled to an exemption, but it hasn't been processed yet. There was some thought that rather than re-levy the arrears from this particular last year, you might wait another year and give the program an opportunity to shake down rather than create additional hardship, perhaps for people under fiscal stress. You have that option. It was thoroughly researched by our council, and I think it's recommended by the administration and also the treasurer's office. So that's what it's at.
So we're not going to be forgiving this money. We're just not going to assess a tax levy. So we're still going to reach out to them and try to raise their awareness of the fact that they owe this money and try to get them to pay before we implement any kind of tax levy, correct?
Yes, you're not waiving anything, just a time delay.
Right, it's a time delay and you can roll in what's left after you provide this opportunity for redemption. You know, they can redeem these. So it'll roll into next year's, and then 2 years worth of arrears can be re-levied and collected in the nature of taxes according to the law.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm certainly in favor of that.
Do we, just two quick questions for Jeff. Do we have any sense of what the aggregate amount of this is outstanding, and any sense of what the average bill is? So it strikes me that it's more likely people just don't know what it is, and as opposed to, because our tax collections were pretty good, and that's a much bigger number, obviously.
Correct. 600 accounts, excuse me. If I recall correctly, it's somewhere around 67,000 in dollars that are back outstanding. I think the projection that we had before the program was even implemented on cost, I think that was pretty accurate. If I remember correctly, it's about $200 a year, roughly, for a average house.
So we all okay on this?
Yep.
Anybody against it? Okay, so that's what we'll do. Thank you, everybody. Action item number 4 is a discussion, a lot of discussions tonight. A discussion of proposed pilot program for daily parking at waterfront park. So I know we have a presentation. I don't know who's going to speak to that.
I think, Elisa, you want to speak to this? Or
Yeah, she's sharing her screen.
okay, there you go.
It's actually Chief Guevara I'm just helping with the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, just I'll go through this pretty quick. This is just a reminder of what we're trying to do now as permit sales have begun and actual enforcement will begin sometime in June. But, we have just a quick reminder, kind of pre-COVID, what the parking kind of looked like for residents at the waterfront park. We're talking about the Dobbs Ferry train station in particular. So some of the passes that residents had for the waterfront park were the annual commuter permits, which enabled holders to park during the commuting hours, Monday through Friday, anywhere in the parking lot with the exception of the designated recreation spaces that are located along the west side of the waterfront. Another pass that Monday through Fridays are the annual recreation permit, which would allow residents to park in the 18 designated spaces up to 4 hours on weekdays, and then Saturdays, Sundays, holidays, they could park anywhere on the lot. There was no time issue. And then the other permit that we offered residents was the daily, and that was really geared for residents who may need to go down to the city, but not enough to justify the cost of an annual commuter pass. And so that was $5 a day. Normally, or $2 for seniors. At the time, those would have been sold through the police department. As far as non-residents, we have been selling 65 non-resident commuter passes to RD residents, and that has been the ongoing agreement for many years now. And as long as I can remember, RD residents buy them all out. So we sell all 65. There have never been any left over during a calendar year. We also had a non-resident seasonal permit, which we really did not sell very I don't really remember selling very many of them. Those were specific from May 1st, October 31st. It allowed parking 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. And then there was some Sundays. That cost was about $100. And we also had the non-resident daily permits. So in addition to the resident dailies, we had non-residents where they could purchase them at the police department that would enable them to park at the train station lot from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. So it didn't conflict with commuter parking on weekdays, and then 5 a.m. to 2 a.m. weekends, holidays, excluding the 4th of July. And that had an increased fee of $10 and $15 on the weekends. Hudson Social, they had an agreement with the village. And then the MTA on the weekends has 25 spots for free parking, residents, not residents. So that many times would get used up as people would travel into the city. So we've kind of run into a challenge now that we are with the pandemic. And as we're hopefully coming out of that, we have now transferred the responsibility of the permits from the police department upstairs as we have moved to an online format. Again, trying to limit some of the queuing up that we would have in the lobby as residents try to get the annual commuter passes. So because it's going upstairs, the ability to purchase a permit now falls within the daytime constraints of 8:30 to 4. But certainly we know commuters sometimes will need a permit like a daily on an odd hour. So one of the thoughts, because that's really the challenge, the commuter passes, that can be handled a little bit easier, but it's that daily permit that makes it difficult now with Village Hall, because sometimes somebody may need to get into the city by 7 o'clock and Village Hall is not open. So my thought, and I've discussed in the past, is that we have the kiosk at 99 Cedar. We would like to have that transitioned to a location at the waterfront lot, which will enable residents to pay at the kiosk. They can indicate their vehicle, and this makes it much more convenient for somebody to use a train station on that daily. And so that's what my hope is, to repurpose a kiosk that we're spending a wireless fee that we're really not, it's being underutilized at 99 Cedar Street lot. Now that we've added Park Mobile, that can kind of control the parking at the 99 Cedar Street lot, and we can have a better efficient use of a kiosk down at the waterfront. So there is some the thought with this being a pilot program, because we're still not seeing the lot at this point being utilized the way it had been prior to the pandemic. So if we can get residents to use the kiosk, it's be a great use of revenue for the village. However, suggestion is that we, under the pilot program, increase the parking. So from the $5, $2 pre-pandemic pricing, weekdays, we increase the price of the daily parking to $10 on the weekdays, $15 on the weekends. Now, again, that won't affect somebody who's already a holder of a permit. They'll be able to park at the train station. So it's really for those residents who have neither permit. As well as it, we'll make sure that the signage is put up there properly. We have been adding Park Mobile signs so that non-residents can pay by phone after hours. Again, so it's really only affecting, this is the challenge is the dailies. That's what we're trying to close that loop that right now kind of exists where we're at now. For seniors, we can still give them the opportunity, if they do need a daily permit, they can, and they want to pay the $2 fee, they could go upstairs to Village Hall. That still gives them the option. It would be no difference in them coming to the PD, except that they would go upstairs to pay for their discounted rate if the board is interested in that. And we can do this as a pilot for 1 year. Let's see where the pandemic goes, and we can reassess. If it works, we continue it. If not, or we see there's some issues, we can modify as needed. But the hope is really trying to get people to use the train station lot again. Some of the pros is that it's much more convenient to use the kiosk or the mobile phone versus actually coming into the building. One of the issues we had was that the police department would have a queue of people lined up looking to get permits, and we're answering phones, dispatching cars. So it does create a bit of a lag for some of the residents who might be in a rush for a train. And then as a reminder, residents who have a recreation permit or have their commuter, this doesn't affect them at all. It's just for the occasional dailies. One of the cons, I spoke with ITS, there would be a cost for them to uninstall and reinstall the kiosk down at the waterfront lot, which is the quote they gave us is $17.30. I also need DPW's assistance just to set up the pad and the conduit for the power, just to run the machine. Again, the con is it does raise the daily permit price for residents from what it was to up to $10. Although we can, again, for seniors, they can still come into the building and get the discounted rate. One of the potential challenges would be just trying to distinguish between residents and non-residents, and there's some thought done on how we do that. But for right now, this is just something that I think if we can start rolling forward, I can, make arrangements with ITS to remove that kiosk from 99 and get it set up at the waterfront. Thank you.
Well, this came up sort of at the rec commission meeting last night. Sorry, Mayor, we're going to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Because they're, starting to get, requests, not surprising, for use of the waterfront park in the upcoming months. And the permit allows, I think, one spot is included with the permit. And then how would, like, a lot of them are, some are residents, some are non-residents. So how would the non-residents pay for the parking? So this would solve that problem, then they would just be able to pay with the kiosk, the $10 or $15, whatever it is. They only get the permits for 4 hours, so are the spots sold in 4-hour increments or just daily permit, or what is it?
We could, ITS has said that they can set up the kiosk to whatever parking parameters we require. So if that's something that we would need to tie in, say, with rec department on a permit that they may issue. We could go that route. If I thought in the past with sometimes with events with the rec department, they may have a placard that might be issued, so that would supersede. That may not necessarily be required. But as far as the daily passes, yeah, we could set the kiosk according to ITS. It can be programmed however the village sees fit. So it's very functional and versatile.
Rick, how much is the resident recreation sticker for the year?
The resident recreation is $5 for the year.
So it would make sense for every resident to get a residential sticker, so you could go and use the park on the weekend for $5 for the year. So every resident, so that would help us identify who's a resident and who's not to some extent.
I just want to say that I think it's $10 for the resident recreation,
even if it is
$5 for
$10,
seniors.
it's still, yeah.
$5
No, I'm
for
not saying that. I
seniors.
just want to clarify it. Yeah.
$5 for seniors.
Yeah. Whatever. That's a great deal for residents, and people should know about that. Maybe we should push that out there a little more. Secondly, how does this affect something like the Jazz Festival? Would people be paying then for parking for that?
No, we can, if the village is, if the village wants it waived, and during the Jazz Festival, it's we can just like we've always done. Nothing really changes. In the past, when the Jazz Festival occurred on Wednesday nights, parking was waived in those hours. So really, yeah, nothing is in essence changing about. We're just trying to create just another process in which residents have these, for those dailies. Like you said, Donna, you hit that on the head. The recreation pass is going to cover you for the year. You wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah. One other thing, it's with 99 Cedar, because we had this discussion, you and I, Rick, the maybe putting in some of the old meters down there for people who hopefully will someday want to park in 99 Cedar and don't necessarily have a sticker or a Park Mobile app. So if we could maybe throw in a couple of meter heads down there, if that's possible, from our old meters.
Rick, when you say nothing's changing, you mean but really the daily for the resident is changing. That's what you're saying it should be doubled from $5 to $10, right?
As far as revenue, and we haven't touched permit fees in many, many years. Really what we're trying to do is it's for that Monday through Friday, and that's during the commuting hours. This is really what's affected, because for a resident who doesn't want it or does not commute to the city to justify the purchase of the commuter pass, with the recreation sticker, they can only park in a recreation spot for up to 4 hours. So really, again, the dailies over the weekend, it's really trying to help or to create the ease of parking during those commuter hours, Monday through Friday, where you would need that daily, but you don't want to buy a commuter pass, and the recreation sticker is only going to get you 4 hours, and you might be down in the city for 6. So it would be potentially temporarily just raising the daily fee to the $10 for the, from what it is. And again, we can still offer the seniors the ability to come in to Village Hall to pay the discounted rate.
Would there be a convenience fee for that on top of the $10 through Park Mobile?
No, because in this case, this is just straight to the kiosk. So they're paying no different than paying in the back parking lot. Yeah, this would have nothing to do with Park Mobile in this regard.
Okay, so it will be just $10.
Good to know.
Okay.
So, couple of quick questions. How many daily parking permits are sold now at the police department? I mean, is it on an average day? Is it 2? Is it 5? Is it 20?
It would vary, and we're going back because we were trying to look to see some of the numbers going back pre-pandemic, and by and large, most of our dailies were sold between up until 3 o'clock or so. So I don't think on a high we were selling more than 15 in a day.
So was that primarily, you're talking about weekends now?
Weekdays.
Weekdays. Okay.
Yeah, weekends we tend not to. Not that we don't sell them. We might sell some of the daily non-resident if there was a Yankee game, somebody looking, to use the lot. But most of our dailies tended to be sold. In my experience, when I was on the desk, during that Monday through Friday, someone just running down to a doctor's visit or something like that. We wouldn't sell very many after 3 p.m. So it's not like we were, a lot of permits were being put out there.
Where would you propose putting the kiosk? Because one of the challenges to that lot is that it's huge, and people who want to go for recreation are going in one direction, and people who are headed for the train are going in another direction.
So we did a site visit, it was a week and a half ago, myself and other members of other department heads. We wanted to find it centrally located and access to make sure that it was handicap accessible. So as you're heading kind of down towards the middle of the train station lot, there is an ADA accessible ramp, which is almost opposite of one of the ramps to the train station, as well as we have a power source that we believe was a good location and provided access to people with any disabilities that might have have issues walking up steps. We had the ramp, and it's kind of centrally located in the train station lot to start.
Have you taken into consideration queuing up of cars waiting to use the kiosk to keep it from, or is that, we don't think that's going to be that?
No, because I think, unfortunately right now the lot is and has been pretty empty. So really they should be able to just park, walk up to the kiosk, retrieve the sticker from that and place on the vehicle, and they can walk right up to the platform.
That's the case now, but it seems to me that that's a very inefficient way to do it. Again, given the size of that lot, that, if you've got to get a sticker, if you're, parked all the way at the end and you've got to come all the way back or park your car, double park your car, maybe creating a safety hazard in the area of the kiosk. I would think the Park Mobile app would be more appealing to most people who are going to use that lot on weekdays, residents who are going in.
You bring up a very good point, Larry, and I agree with you. The thought was that there are still some people that may not feel comfortable or have access to a smartphone to use the Park Mobile. We've had discussions that, yeah, it would be great to just have the entire lot controlled by Park Mobile and not even have to worry about the kiosk in and of itself. But, you know, there's still that thought that, you know, Donna raised the point of maybe putting some of the mechanicals back into 99 Cedar for that very reason. So that's why, you know, that's what we're thinking as a pilot program. We could kind of see where this goes. And if it works out well, maybe, yes, that is the next evolution of parking here in Dobbs Ferry, where Park Mobile is the app for parking, and you know, it just makes life potentially easier for residents and guests, where they can just pay by their phone and off they go.
Just to clarify, it's both. It's Park Mobile and the kiosk.
No, I think I understand that. Can people buy these permits in advance? In other words, for somebody who knows they're going to go to the city one day a week, you know, or one day a month, can they buy 5 permits at the same time now?
As of right now, under how we would sell the dailies, we wouldn't sell dailies more than a week in advance. We would have a couple residents that would come in and say, hey, I'd like to get the next 3 days. So we would buy them. As far as a kiosk, I can get an answer to see if somebody can pay for multiple days, so they're showing the same sticker. As far as the seniors, should we use the senior discount where they're coming into Village Hall? That would be an option where they could say pay for 2 days in advance. So they have that, and it's already fixed to the back window.
I just to toss one thing possibility out here is, before we spend several $1,000s to move that kiosk, which maybe doesn't help us with 99 Cedar, and I'm not sure how much it would be used. Would it make sense to try Park Mobile at the train station for daily, along with the police department still selling? And then if it still is a burden, we could consider other alternatives, again, before we spend the money to move the kiosk.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe we can just try it as Park Mobile, and then if they don't have access to Park Mobile, they can go to the Village Hall and get a parking permit. And you said maybe they can get it for the next day, right? If they know they're going to go into the city at 7 a.m., they could stop by and get it for the following day. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think, you know, talking with Jeff, I think we'd be both very happy that if we had Park Mobile as, you know, covering the entire lot, that certainly would be a good thing.
Gee, with this trial that we are trying, what are the chances of creating consistency among all of our lots, all of our municipal lots, in terms of choices of parking?
Well, based on, Mara, what you were saying is that, yes, because by theoretically moving the kiosk out of 99 Cedar, we would be controlling that lot during its effective hours by Park Mobile or the parking permits that are permitted by code. So yes, so 99 Cedar, you're 100% right. You know, if we were to do that at the waterfront lot, it is the same standard, because you're going to be parked there by permit that's affixed, whether it's the annual commuter, the recreation, or Park Mobile's controlling it, as would be the same at 99. And you know, we've added Park Mobile to the rear lot of headquarters, as well as the Oak Street lot. And again, there are 2 kiosks. We have a kiosk in the back lot as well as Oak Street. And if you have a permit, you can fix. So, you know, yeah, there's some value in standardizing how all the municipal lots are enforced and what restrictions apply. It's just that right now there's some certain things, you know, that are listed, I guess, in the code, then, that if we were to go that way, you know, depending on the, you know, what the final outcome of the pilot program may be, that might have to be amended. But, you know, yeah, certainly to standardize it would be easier for us to enforce and easier for us to explain. I mean, we do have a lot of permits. I still trip over my words when I try to explain some of the various permits we have.
I think Christy brings up a good point in her email. I mean, what about the village plan? Can we get like the village planner or someone who has an expertise perhaps who can take a look at these parking lots and how people react during this time or for the foreseeable future? I mean, is that their expertise, or can they locate someone whose expertise would be that?
Richard, you're muted.
Sorry, generally you have to go out for a study of all the parking lots. It's like a separate task, but we can certainly look into that and see what that means and how it could be done. And then it would be an option for you. They want to see how they're being used, how they can be more effectively used. More often than not, it's never a situation where you don't have enough parking. It's just not being properly regulated.
Yeah, I sent him an email. I didn't want to go off topic and like get us too derailed, but like if there's, I feel like so often we're layering Band-Aid upon Band-Aid on our issues, and this one, like I feel like we need to solve it. It's not like we can stop and detour and have this whole conversation about all of the parking lots right now and how it's because we need the daily permit thing resolved now, right? So we have to help figure that out, but having someone analyze, because it just seems like that would be a specific expertise of somebody that might not be any of us, where you like see the usage and you see what people are charged and what we could be charging, optimize it all so that it's an easy user experience. And I don't know, that it's a longer question for a different time, but I wanted to bring it up as something we could look into.
I mean, I've been party to that, so I can certainly reach out just for the heck of it. Doesn't cost any money to ask the question. I can get you an idea of what it costs and what's involved. But I know they looked at every lot, they looked at every on-street space, looked at how it was being used, how it could be used, and signage is so important, so people know where the availability is. But I can get a number on that, and I can actually probably get you a report, and you can look it over from another community.
Are we saying we needed to have an answer tonight on this? Was June 1st is coming up quickly? Is that what we're saying?
Well, Mayor, if what we can do is we just have the dailies continue to be sold currently at the Village Hall in the short term, so that we can try to find someone with expertise, and then at least gets the dailies back out there until maybe we have, because Christy brings up a good point, just another layer of another Band-Aid, if you will. I would like to kind of put this issue to bed, so to speak, and get it behind us, so we can start moving towards as we get past the pandemic.
So can we do what Larry suggested? Can we do the?
You might start, you might start with the Park Mobile
Yeah.
scenario to see how many you can sell that way.
Right. I think that makes sense to me. There's a Park Mobile, and if they don't have a smartphone or whatever, they'll have to go to the Village Hall.
Okay,
We
so-
can change the pricing as well if we wanted to change the pricing.
Yeah, do we have to pass something to change the permit pricing? I mean, do we have to change the code or do something about that? Because if we're going from $5 to $10, can we just do that with the resolution, or what do we need to do that?
It's a master fee schedule. Remember, we took the actual dollar fees out of your local code, so it no longer needs a local law to change.
Good.
But you can establish the pilot program. While we've been talking, I've just been on the Croton on Hudson, because that's the train station I would recognize as offering. They have designated spaces. They do it by kiosk. You can determine if you're going to be gone 2 days. There's, it's all programmed in, but you have Park Mobile, which can be programmed to do the same kind of thing. And, you sell daily fees. There's no difference at the Croton on Harmon train station. A daily fee is just a set price. There's not a difference between residents and non-residents, but you can determine on the 25th, which is is that your next meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the 25th, you can ask for a resolution to amend that master fee schedule. In the meantime, you'll have information back from the chief, and you'll have a handle if you want to go in the direction of Park Mobile on what those daily fees would be appropriate.
Yeah, that's my sense of it. So Donna, how do you feel?
Yeah, that makes sense. We can try it, and if it's not working, we can always move the kiosk. So it's
Okay.
probably better to try it, not to have the expense of moving the kiosk. Now, I know, Rick, you had some issues with paying for the internet fee at at 99 Cedar. Could we also possibly turn that kiosk off and see if Park Mobile could just work there to save the fee on a kiosk that's not being used?
Yeah, if that's what the board wishes, we can reach out to ITS and have them send us an amended, Jeff, what is it called? They have an agreement on the fees that would just have to be signed off to have it removed from our monthly fee schedule with them.
Since we were planning on trying that anyway, if we move it, might as well save the money.
Your last overhaul of the parking code allowed for the removal of the kiosk. It specifically said the parking at 99 was regulated by kiosk. Now it just says an appropriate parking management system. So we broadened it so you'd be able to move that kiosk around if you needed to in the future. The chief and I had collaborated on that. So the language is very broad the last time we revised the parking code.
Yeah, so I can reach out to McKay to have them send us the agreement to have that kiosk removed from the billing cycle.
Okay, so let's move along on it, and I think we could get it ready for the next meeting.
I just quickly, how much are we talking about? If we're going to kill the kiosk, is it $40 a month or something, or is it a lot more?
You say 40, chief, right?
Yeah, it's going to be 40, some electric and inactivity on the credit card fees from the credit card company.
I don't know if it's worth, what are we then do? We're going to tape a sign on it saying use Park Mobile for $40 a month. I don't know why. It doesn't seem like we need to disconnect it, but.
Yeah, I'd like to find out how much is actually coming in monthly before we rush to say $40. People get used to, you want to get people used to that. So let's get some additional information. We'll share it with you, see what the savings would actually be.
Yeah, my thing was to move forward on the waterfront park thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to, $10 does seem like steep to me. So I want to bring that up just in case. I want to know what the neighboring communities do in relation. And I know that I often did the day pass, and that would have a jump from 5 to 10 to double would be shocking for me, especially now if I'm trying, just going back into the city would be.
Plus, you're right, and the Park Mobile has a convenience fee, so that will be on top of that, right?
So not to belabor this whole conversation, but I do think it's a big jump from 5 to 10. So I just want to know if we've been behind this whole time and we're just offering a super great deal, then that's one thing. But if we're now going to be like the priciest in town, I just want us to know that going into that decision.
Elisa, do we have that? We looked into that a little. I don't know if we have the final results of that. If not, we can look further.
You speak, I did the math of the time window, and it's like 83 cents per hour.
Also, don't forget, if you have a recreation sticker, it gives you 4 hours. So you can park at 1 o'clock with the recreation sticker and stay for the rest of the evening.
No, but it's mostly if you were to go into the city to work for the day, you have to have a day pass. And it's like, I barely ever needed a permit because I was never in the city enough. So I always got day passes, and $10 once a week would add up pretty fast.
I don't know about Hastings and Irvington and us, but I park everywhere, and $10 is not like a steep fee anywhere, I will say. And I'm not talking about the city where I'm paying like $60 every time I go anywhere, but I just mean like Long Island or other towns around Westchester, like paying $10 for park for a few hours is pretty standard.
Okay. Just
Or somewhere in that ballpark. I don't think $5. I think we're on the really cheap side.
Let's do an assessment of what other municipalities do.
Croton is $12 for the day, and
day.
Hastings is it's $5 for 16 hours and $7 for 24 hours. Scarsdale's daily parking is through a private lot only, and it's $15 for the day. So there's a range.
Okay.
Tarrytown is they don't have daily permits because of COVID. They use a pay machine, so it's $14 is the max daily rate. And Irvington also, they're telling me they don't offer daily, but it's $1 an hour, $7 per day at the Irvington.
Not bad then. We're right on point.
Okay. So let's get that ready for the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Alyssa. Action item number 5 is to consider a resolution to award the contract for cleaning service for the Dobbs Ferry Public Library to the lowest bidder, T&A Cleaning, for a monthly fee not to exceed $1,450 a month. We have a memo from the library director dated May 3rd, listing all the bids that she received and that she recommends the T&A Cleaning, who are currently the vendors and who came in as the cheapest bid. So is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Action item number 6 is to consider a resolution to accept a donation in the amount of $500 from Good Motion Pictures. We are in receipt of a memo from the Superintendent of Recreation, Kendra Garrison, regarding this. Kendra, could you speak briefly about this? Who are they? Where did it come from and why?
They used the Memorial Park to do a film shoot, and so they wanted to make a donation to the Recreation Department.
Okay. It's greatly accepted. So is there a motion to accept it? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? Thank you very much. It's great. Action item number 7 is to consider a planning board referral of proposed zoning code change, MDR2, and consider a resolution to schedule a public hearing for consideration of a local law on proposed amendments to the village zoning text, map, and table. So who is here to speak on this? Who is going to speak on it?
So I don't know that any, oh, I'm
Rob
sorry.
Lane.
Rob Lane is
Rob Lane.
the
I beg your
Yeah.
pardon.
So
Yeah.
before we move forward on it, though, I just want to be clear, Richard, all we're really going to do is set a date for a public hearing. Is that correct?
Yes, and what I wanted to share was that this has not really been, this is a very comprehensive work and a lot of really good information to try to address current issues that have come up. Your planner wants to have an opportunity to review it and just see if there's any comments or any information that she might like to share with you. So between now and the public hearing, Valerie will have an opportunity to do that and she'll get back to you on it. But
So
thank you,
Rob-
Mr. Lynn. Yeah.
Rob, I'm going to ask you to be very brief on this and the trustees will have an opportunity to review this. So if we may have any questions for you, we will. And then obviously we're going to have our planner review it and it's going to be subject to a public hearing. So if you can just give us the highlights on this, it'd be greatly appreciated.
And yeah, I'll need to have some guidance after Rob's presentation on what aspects you want included in a local law, because it needs to go to county planning. You have a resolution in your packet. You need to declare yourselves lead agency. You know, there's just housekeeping. But Rob's the expert on the substance here.
Well, that's good. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you. Mayor, I plan on being super brief. I'm here, Rob Lane. I'm representing the planning board at the request of Chairman Hunter. My presentation tonight is going to just basically just introduce what's already you've been given. Most of it is very, very straightforward. And the parts of it that are not straightforward or that you find more complicated would not be worth digging into tonight. So I'm going to go through 3 things: the proposed changes to the zoning tables. For those of you who may or may not be familiar with the code has a lot of text that describes the intention and so on of the different zones. And then it refers you to a set of tables in the back in the appendix that actually tell you, you can have this much coverage and you can be this high. All of this detail stuff is in one place. I just want to thank Ed Manley, who really did a lot of this work. Ed knows the code better than all of us. So in terms of the changes, let me see. How do I just? Oh yeah. There's no change to this page, so that's easy enough. Most of the changes deal with MDR2. There was A, which stands for Medium Density Residential 2. This is the district that's mapped largely in the downtown along Palisade Street. That's how this project came to light. But it is also, or this issue came to light, but it's also represented in several other places. And it was pointed out that there were several ways in which the dimensional standards for this district were out of whack. So we use the excuse of looking at Palisade Street to do a survey of the MDR districts across the town and make several recommendations. They're highlighted in red on the sheets that you've been given. You can see on this sheet, it deals almost exclusively with lot coverage and impervious surface and how heights are measured to the buildings in this zone. We found that the existing requirements for coverage in particular did not match what was actually on the ground. And that's why you see these numbers that have been increased, for instance, from 27% to 40%. But you can look at it in more detail on your own. Then the other thing that we have is a sliding scale. That is because somebody has a lot that's twice as big doesn't mean that they should be able to build a building that is twice as big. So as in other districts, there was a sliding scale that basically discounts the heights and the amount you can build as the lot gets larger. That's what's represented in this chart. And again, I won't go through it in any real detail. And then same on this chart with building height also being on a sliding scale. The other thing that we did, we moved, some of this stuff was in separate charts in different parts of the appendix. We put them together so it's a little bit more like one-stop shopping. But again, the main change here is to recalibrate the MDR2 so that it better reflects what's on the ground in those districts. The second thing is two very straightforward and common sense zoning map changes that probably are corrections to mistakes that we made when we did this the first time around. The first is that along Maple Street, there are two districts, MDR1, Medium Density Residential 1, and One Family -4. And if you look at the aerial photograph on the right, or if you drive down Maple Street, you'll see that it makes no sense for the break between these two districts to be down the middle of Maple Street, because the two sides of Maple Street are the same, and really the larger scale neighborhood development happens when you go further north. And so you can see here on this diagram on the left, the existing boundary, the diagram on the right, our extension of the MDR1, so it takes in both sides of Maple Street, which is appropriate. If you look at the highlights on this slide of, what's the difference between the two of them, MDR1 allows townhouses and 2 or 3 family houses, which are in that district if you drive around there. And in terms of massing, OF4 requires twice the lot area. So it makes no sense for that side of Maple Street to be zoned that way. So this is a pretty common sense change. A similar one occurs here. This is near the high school at the end of Maple Street, where Maple Street meets Broadway. There's another MDR1 district that extends out to the B Broadway district. And there just is a feeling that really that line should have been drawn one large property in from Broadway. You probably all know there is that 3 or 4 story multifamily building there. It is larger than the other buildings in the MDR1. It is the right scale for Broadway. And so we're proposing that that district could be rationalized as well by moving it in that direction. And then again, in terms of comparing the highlights, the major things between the MDR1 and the Broadway allows small scale commercial uses, a few things that are not allowed in the MDR1, and it also requires larger lots and allows higher coverage. So it's appropriate for what we have elsewhere in the Broadway district. And then the last thing, which you all again should review in detail, is that we did a set of what we're calling character guidelines for Palisade Street. As you all know, or probably suspect, or I sure have learned in my time on the planning board, you can write all the code you want in the world. At the end of the day, The only way you get a decent building is if you have a developer and an architect who want to do the right thing. And in order to have some discretionary, after a project has met all of the code requirements, it may still, you step back and you look at it and you say, this is not right. So the character guidelines give you the opportunity for there to be a little bit more discretionary review that is constrained. So it isn't just, well, Rob Lane doesn't like it, so we can't build it. We explained what it is about Palisade Street that makes it Palisade Street and tried to codify that as much as possible. And we did it around 5 things. We walked up and down Palisade Street and we decided that there are at least 5 things about it. One is that there's a kind of transition zone from the sidewalk to the face of the building. It's this kind of area where there's either a porch or a landscaped area. Very rarely does the building come right up to the sidewalk and confront you with the entrance. It happens, and those are the less pleasant places. So we're suggesting in this guideline that there's this kind of transition zone from the public street to the private entrance to the house, and that there should be elements like the other elements along Palisade Street that are in this zone. The second one is the maximum scale of the frontage along the street. So even if you have a big lot, there should be sort of the primary public facing portion of the building should be limited in terms of its width. And we did a pretty detailed survey of what those conditions were and came up with something in the world of about 40 feet to 45 feet in width. And again, some of these dimensional standards are actually in those revised charts. The third thing is a facade composition thing. If you look at the street, you look at those diagrams on the left, if you put all these together, you see that there are sort of expression lines that typically take place at the first floor and the second floor. So our guideline is that any building that gets built here should have those similar expression lines to carry that down the length of the street. The fourth thing in terms of facade composition is that most of the buildings along there have what are called punched openings. That's just a fancy way of saying that most of the front of the building is wall, and there's a sense that the windows are punched in this solid wall, let's say, as opposed to a glass curtain wall covering most of the front of a building. And then the last thing, and this is the last slide, is we did a series of design studies that get at, especially if you have larger lots, how should the building be massed to break down its scale? And this is where, again, we came up with this idea that the maximum frontage of any of the major portion of the building should not be greater than 40 feet in width, that it should feel like there's first and foremost a primary volume with smaller volumes attached to it as a way of moderating the scale, and a handful of other things like that. So presumably, together with these changes to the tables and with these guidelines in hand, we should be able to manage development on Palisade Street in a way that feels like it is part of the rest of that street. And that's my last slide. And I think you all will be, as the mayor said, the only action you're taking tonight, I guess, is to call for a public hearing on these materials. And we're certainly available between now and that public hearing to answer any detailed questions that you might have.
Thank you, Rob, for that. That was really great. So is there any questions for Rob right now?
I have a few. I don't know if this is the right forum, if we're going to bring this
to a public hearing
and have a chance to talk about all this. I'd rather not drag everyone through the questions twice, particularly because our meeting's already going a bit late. I can call Rob this week unless I'm not sure what the forum is tonight for this.
Well, I think what we're going to do is get a consensus if we're okay with moving forward on all of these suggestions by the planning board. And if if the majority is okay with moving forward with this, then we would schedule a public hearing where everybody can talk more about it at the public hearing, with the benefit of the residents being there. And in between, we would have the ability also to reach out to the planning board.
Right. I'm happy in the interim to take a call, Michael, and talk about it with you. I'd welcome a call from any of you to talk about some of it in detail and explain some of it in detail.
Well, and I will say this, in light of what you said, Mayor, I will say that in terms of the the district changes that make perfect sense. The changes to the tables also make a lot of sense to me. I do have some issues with some of the guidelines and I'd like to address those.
I would expect that from a fellow architect, and I welcome your input.
So I support it, in large part, 90% of it. There's maybe a little tinkering we could do to the guidelines before they get adopted.
I'd love that.
Or I would vote to adopt them at our board.
Okay,
I don't have
go ahead, Donna.
I don't have a question. I just basically have a comment. As you can imagine, this took a tremendous amount of work. It was a yeoman's effort done by the planning board. I want to give them a huge shout out and congratulate them. And I also want to point out that Rob Lane, Steve Brosnahan, and Ed Manley did a
Ayer Rosenberg.
Yeah.
We did it as a joint thing with the HRB, since they're the other people who are going to have to deal with these guidelines. So yes, I was remiss. I meant to acknowledge them, but they all had a big part in this. So Michael, I welcome any questions or comments about any part of this.
So Laura Lee, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If the consensus is just we could move this along for a public hearing, and then we could get into the details prior to the public hearing, and at the public hearing raise these issues and concerns and modify accordingly, correct?
Well, yes, what you're doing is you're calling for a draft of a local law to move these forward. And that local law then in draft is sent to the county planning with your environmental assessment form and all the backup documents that you have in front of you. And in the meantime, because you're making map changes, there's an enhanced level of notice required in advance of the public hearing. You are changing people's zoning, property owner zoning. So there's an extra level of notice, plus you're rezoning within proximity to municipalities. So local municipalities just get notice as well. So I set the hearing 2 meetings ahead. If you would like, and if there's a consensus, I can draft a local law that incorporates all of these recommendations. But as you know, you can change anything right up to the point where you adopt it. So during discussion at public hearing, if you want to see another draft, then you just adjourn the public hearing and somebody comes back. And in the end, we have to send whatever we adopt back to the county planning. That's the requirement. So you call it your resolution is, the last page in this backup document, but you'll need to call for the draft of the local law if that's the consensus, and then make the necessary determinations under SECRA and the referral to the county planning.
Okay, so is there a consensus? I note Trustee Patino's concerns, which I think we can address going forward. Are there any other, in addition to that, does anyone else have any other concerns, and can we move forward? Is there a consensus to move forward with this?
Mr. Mayor, I am okay on moving forward. However, I do plan to have a discussion with Trustee Patino as well as Robert to better understand some of the changes that I might have questions on.
Okay, that's
welcome.
Fair. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a motion to
pass the resolution?
Do I don't have to read the whole resolution, right?
No, you don't. You don't, but it is important that you declare your lead agency status.
Which this motion does, but I'll read part of it, okay? Yeah. It does say that whereas for purposes of the New York for SECRA, an environmental assessment form has been prepared for the proposed action, and the matter now requires referral and circulation of notice to meet legal requirements for revisions to the village's zoning code and map. Now, therefore, be it resolved that as the sole approval authority for the above detailed action, the Board of Trustees hereby declares itself lead agency for purposes of SECRA. And be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees calls for an introductory local law to be drafted reflecting the proposed amendments to the village zoning text, map, and table, and calls for a public hearing to take place on June 8th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Be it further resolved that the above referenced local law proposing zoning amendments and notice of hearing shall be referred, circulated, and made available by the village clerk in accordance with the applicable law. Is there a motion? Trustee Casal, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? So it moves forward. Thank you again, Rob. You did a
Sure.
great job. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time, and I look forward to talking to Michael and Mara and whoever else would like to discuss this. So,
Okay, great.
good. Okay, thank you very much.
Action item number 8 is to consider a resolution approving the tax warrant for the 2021 tax year. Jeff, can you speak to that?
Yeah, excuse me. As you recall, you passed the budget last meeting, and this is setting the tax levy at $14,934 and $860. Excuse me, $14,934,862. It's getting late. Sorry about that.
And what are we doing when we do this? We are authorizing what?
Authorizing the tax collector to collect those that 14 million
and change
from the taxpayers.
Okay, is there a motion? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee Casal, all in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay, and Jeff, action item number 9 is to consider a resolution to approve the audit of claims as submitted and recommended by the treasurer. Anything unusual or anything different?
No, standard audit unless there's questions.
Is there a motion? Trustee Casal, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 10 is to consider a resolution to set a public hearing for May 25th, 2021 to discuss community development block grant opportunities for Dobbs Ferry and to schedule a public information meeting for June 8th, 2021 to discuss summaries of the CDBG projects. I know we had a presentation on it. I think we're ready to move forward on it. So is there a motion? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor? And that passes unanimously. Action item number 11 is to consider a resolution to close the offices of Village Hall, DPW, and the Village Court on May 18th and May 19th for the annual records management. We have a memo from Liz Draper explaining that. Is there a motion? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? That passes unanimously. The minutes, does anybody have any comments? Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of April 27th, 2021? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? That passes unanimously. The planning board on May 6th?
Yeah. Essentially, 156 Palisades is still up in the air. And I think Rob told you a lot of what was going on at the planning board with the MDR2 zone, but nothing else.
We were all there anyway, right? In the beginning of
You were
that
all there anyway, right? For the, that's right, for the 189 Ashford Avenue, the new plans that were being submitted. Yeah.
Okay, Parks and Rec?
Sorry. So I think the big point of our conversation is something that we've already brought to the board, and they'll be sending us a written recommendation about Waterfront Park and the size of events that should be permitted down there and the number of events that should be permitted down there. Want to have a cap on large events, like maybe 6 or 10 per year. Like obviously we usually have the high school graduation down there. In past years, we had the public market. I know there is something, I think, like Larry with the Rivertown Arts this year that we're proposing. So Do we want to just have unlimited number of big events, or we want to cap that number? If that's what Greenberg does. And then we want to limit like smaller events to a max of 50. They recommended putting events only at those 5 picnic tables north of the playground. So the entire area is designated for permitted parties, so we run into less issues with the police having to enforce the permits, et cetera. But it's something that we need to really get a handle on and finalize a decision. It just keeps getting discussed and kicked around but never finalized. So that was a big part of the discussion. I thought it was actually going to be part of the discussion tonight. We discussed Juneteenth and Pride, that, just events in general. So, we have Memorial Day, we have July 4th, we have Berry Festa, and people are asking if we're intending to do those events or not. So,
Okay. We should put it on for the agenda then for the trustees to discuss at the next meeting.
be great.
Okay.
And then there was a question to Laura Lee about, not just about pricing for non-residents, because we took public money for the park, so we can't limit it. It's a public park. It's not just for Dobbs-Ferry residents. But can we limit events for non-residents? Like if an event is proposed for all non-residents, there's no resident connected to it, is there any limitations we're allowed to put on it or not? You don't have to answer right now, but I think I was supposed to bring that to your attention.
Okay. AHRB.
Oh, sorry, if I can. The camp registration's opened and they've expanded it to kindergartners and 5th graders now. So before it was just 1st to 4th graders.
Okay. Is there any AHRB?
There's no meeting.
Okay. Any announcements?
Yeah, I've got 2.
Really
One,
not one, Donna. After 9 o'clock, only one.
I can't do 2. I can't think. Very quickly. Senior Center, they're having the exercise classes have begun. You can call Abby at the recreation office, which is the phone number. Quickly, so I don't have to look at it.
693-0024.
That's the one. Thank you very much. So call Abby if you're interested in the senior exercise program. And the Affordable Housing Task Force is holding its community housing forum. It's, Dobbs Talks About Housing. It'll be on June 2nd at 7 o'clock. It will be a Zoom meeting. More information will be coming, but it's a forum to elicit, to get ideas, concerns, what people need, what people think of affordable housing. We really want to have community input on this, on what we can do to help residents to achieve this type of affordable housing that our residents want and need. So that'll be on June 2nd.
Thank you. That's good. The seniors are getting together again. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up to Mayor, that Greenberg has now allowed their seniors to come back in, not for food, but just to inside, as long as they're vaccinated. And their lawyer has advised them that it's appropriate for them to limit it to vaccinated seniors. So I think that we should look into doing that as well in Dobbs-Ferry, especially since the Embassy Center, I think, is almost ready to be used again.
I agree 100%. So maybe Richard and Kendra, if you guys could look into maybe, reopening and get the seniors back together again.
Yeah, they limited it just to the vaccinated seniors. Laura Lee said that Tim Lewis had advised and that was okay if you want to reach out to Tim about it. But I think if other communities are doing it and we're allowed to do it, we should definitely do it. They still make them wear masks inside for obvious reasons. We can figure out our own rules. And then they Greenberg kindly shared with us their proposed plan for making all their park lands non-smoking. So we probably want to make a consideration about that too in light of the recent changes to New York's law about cannabis.
Right. Thanks for bringing that up. That is something that's really important that we have to look at. So Laura Lee, can you take a look at that? have we banned, and if we haven't, can you prepare something where we can ban smoking in parks and public land, village land?
I think it is already banned, but we should definitely check it. And then they had some signage that they were going to be using that I'll circulate. We can follow it or make our own or whatever.
Yeah, we should make sure that we're covered, especially since the legalization of the adult recreational use became effective March 31st. So we should be sure that the no smoking laws are easily enforceable by your police officers. So that's something that we should definitely do a survey to make sure that you're covering yourselves.
All right, thank you. I forgot about bringing that up to you. That's great, thanks.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I have an announcement.
Yes.
So as I mentioned before, the Human Rights and Diversity Committee has a meeting tomorrow at 7. Also, the Youth Services Council, in combination with our school district, they're hosting a virtual vital information for every parent that must know. It's in a story parents must hear. It is with a speaker called Stephen Hill. He is he's a motivational speaker and author that speaks in the lines of substance abuse. So I encourage all the parents, if they can join. There's also going to be a section for the seniors of the high school. So it will be a very educational topic to join and listen to virtually through the school and the Youth Services Council.
Thank you. Anybody else? Alyssa, did I forget anybody? Is there anything happening that I should be mentioning? No?
We'll be in touch about Memorial Day.
Right, so I just wanted to say to everyone that we're going to do something for Memorial Day. It's not going to be a parade, but it will be a ceremony at the high school. I've been in touch with the American Legion, the fire department. So there is interest in doing a ceremony at the high school. So we have to just work out the details and get the word out so we can get people to attend. So I know Nicole, I think you were involved with the Girl Scouts.
I think the scouts were interested. They just wanted to know some parameters around what kind of event it would be. And I want to say the governor recently decided that you have 500 people outside.
Yeah, I know he really expanded it pretty out there. So I think we could definitely accommodate the usual crowd, but we're not going to have a parade. So I think we're just going to congregate at the memorial at the high school and have an event there. Okay, anything further? Okay, there being no further business, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. We did a lot of work today, so thank you for everyone's efforts and patience, and see you in 2 weeks.